My grandmother saved my life with a skill I didn't know she had. I was visiting Grandma Rose for her 87th birthday dinner last Tuesday. The whole house smelled like heaven. Garlic, oregano, and tomatoes simmering together. She'd spent the entire day making my favorite 3-cheese lasagna from scratch, the same recipe she'd been perfecting since I was 8 years old. Her kitchen was exactly how I remembered it from childhood. That little round table with the vinyl tablecloth covered in tiny pink roses, the ancient refrigerator humming in the corner, and her collection of ceramic roosters watching over everything from the windowsill. I was sitting there demolishing this massive corner piece, the kind with extra cheese bubbling on the edges, while telling her about my recent promotion at the marketing firm. She was absolutely beaming, asking a million questions about my new salary, my office with actual windows, and of course whether I was finally going to find a nice girl and give her some great grandchildren. "You know, sweetheart," she said, refilling my glass of sweet tea, "your grandfather proposed to me when I was exactly your age, 26 and stubborn as a mule." Mid-sentence, while I was laughing and telling her about my disaster of a dating life, this enormous chunk of pasta and melted cheese lodged directly in my throat. Not just stuck like when you swallow wrong and cough it up, completely, totally blocking everything. Like someone had shoved a cork deep into my windpipe. I couldn't get any air in or out, nothing. Just this terrifying, complete silence where my breathing should be. My lungs were screaming for oxygen, but there was nowhere for it to go. The panic hit me like a freight train. I shot up from my chair so fast it nearly tipped over, pointing frantically at my throat with both hands, making these horrible choking sounds that weren't really sounds at all. More like desperate, silent gasping. My eyes were probably bulging out of my head. Grandma's face transformed in an instant. Her sweet, gentle expression vanished, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Pure, focused determination. Her eyes went laser sharp, and she jumped up from her chair faster than I'd seen her move in at least a decade. This woman, who usually needs my help getting out of low chairs, who moves carefully because of her arthritis, was suddenly moving like she was 30 years old again. It was honestly more shocking than the choking, but instead of doing what most people would do, patting my back uselessly or running to call 911, she did something that completely floored me. She positioned herself behind me with surgical precision, like she'd done this 1,000 times before. Her small hands found exactly the right spot on my ribcage, just below my sternum. Then she wrapped her arms around my waist and locked her fingers together. What happened next was the most perfect textbook Heimlich maneuver I've ever experienced. 3 calculated, powerful upward thrusts that lifted me slightly off the ground. Her technique was flawless. That massive chunk of pasta shot out of my mouth like it had been fired from a cannon, flew across her entire kitchen, bounced off the refrigerator door, and landed with a wet splat right in the sink among her dinner dishes. I doubled over, gasping and coughing violently, gulping down air like I'd been underwater for 10 minutes. My throat felt raw and scratchy, my chest was burning, but sweet oxygen was flowing into my lungs again. The relief was absolutely incredible. I turned around, still catching my breath and wiping tears from my eyes, completely stunned by what had just happened. "Grandma, how in the world did you know how to do that?" She straightened her flower print cardigan, smoothed down her perfectly curled gray hair, and sat back down at the table like she'd just passed me the butter instead of literally saving my life. She even picked up her fork and took another bite of lasagna. "Oh, honey," she said matter-of-factly, not even looking up from her plate. "I was a trauma nurse in Vietnam for 2 years, before your grandfather came home from his tour and swept me off my feet. We lost a lot of boys over there, but we saved more than we lost. You pick up a few skills." I just stood there staring at her, my mouth hanging open. I'd known this woman my entire 26 years of life. She was my sweet, gentle grandmother who baked sugar cookies for every single holiday, watched Wheel of Fortune religiously every evening at 7:30, and always had butterscotch candies hidden in her purse for when I visited. I had absolutely no idea she'd spent 2 years in a war zone saving lives before I was even born, and she just saved mine over leftover lasagna in her tiny kitchen.